Hello and welcome to Illuminating the Stories That Bind Us. I am your host and illuminator, Jennifer Carey. Join us on our mission to shine light on the false narratives and limiting beliefs that are holding us back from joy, bliss, and healthy relationships. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Illuminating the Stories That Bind Us. I am very excited about this episode because I get to share with all of you Coach Kelly. This is Coach Kelly. This is my coach. I talk about my coach in my sessions. I talk about my coach in my book. Get ready. You're going to hear a lot of Coach Kelly Russell in my book. And I'm very excited to be able to share her with my audience and share some of my personal stories of how she has helped me not only illuminate the stories that have bound me, but help me break through them. One of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, I'm sure, is a result of the stories that she's helped me break through. So I get to share Coach Kelly, Rock Your Joy, Coach Kelly Russell today. And I'm very excited. So thank you, Coach Kelly, for being on here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for that lovely intro. And it's absolutely 100% my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Jen. It's been a joy, rocking my joy to work with you over the years for sure. And so being able to be on your podcast and having be able to participate in something that is you and representative of your growth and things that something that you've been able to do as a result of you illuminating some of the stories that have bound you, and just be able to participate in it is thrilling. It's awesome.
Oh, it is
Thank you.
exciting. Yes, absolutely. And so I'm definitely going to share some of the personal stories, and then I will get a chance to also learn how Coach Kelly helped me doing that, some of her approaches and some of her wisdom. And then, of course, how all of you can contact her and be able to experience her amazing, amazing gifts as well. And I am going to say ahead of time that there may be a chance that laughter is a component. One of the last times Coach Kelly and I got together, this is no exaggeration. We actually had to go like tearing for the ladies' room because we were laughing so hard trying to put together some things for for my practice.
Yeah. Yes, we did. The whole rocking your joy thing. I mean, that's part of what you do. Seeing the humor in everything is
Mm.
so incredibly important. Not taking everything so seriously and just really allowing ourselves to like, notice the ridiculousness and just see it for the hysterical stuff that it is, right?
Oh, I know, I know. And we will definitely have some points around that in our time together. It feels right to go a little bit in chronological order, only to say that I really believe that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And we have such a cool story with that. So there's the weekly coaching that I did with you on various things with, you know, anything from family dynamics and relationship stuff and even career stuff. And then I fell in love with one of your services with deep dives. But I know that both of these, together and combined, because I think the first time the deep dives were within the week, the weekly coaching that we did or the biweekly coaching that we did. Um, Now I know I'm still deep diving with Coach Kelly.
Yeah.
Um, and it's amazing how in that work you helped me just peel away the layers of stories. And it really is through our work that I came to this illuminating the stories that bind us, because it was my journey of doing it, realizing my dreams, looking back, being able to say like, oh my goodness, all those things were stories that weren't even true. And
Yes.
I think to this moment, when you and I were in a deep dive and we were going through specifically just my dynamics with family,
Mm,
which I talk a lot about in my book, and even in this podcast, in earlier episodes, just that story of I need to fix everything and I need to be everything, and you just guided me in like, okay, and if you don't, what will happen?
mm,
And if you don't, what? And and so I think it started out like, oh well, they'll be upset with me,
mhm,
and then it's like you're like, okay, let's keep going.
mm.
Oh no,
That means right.
right? Yeah. Oh no, they won't love me anymore, right? And you're like, let's keep going. There's something. I'm like, no, that's it. And you're like, nope, there's something beneath that.
Right.
And
We were looking for the belief, I think, right?
yes,
The underlying belief, because, the fear, I think, was, the outcome. The fear was, they won't love me, or they'll abandon me, or they'll reject me. But we're looking for, in this work, we're looking for the underlying belief of, but why? Why won't they love you? Why will they reject you? Why will they abandon you? What's true about you? Not really, but what are you believing is true about you? What's that core belief? That's what we're really looking for, is what that core belief is. Yeah.
yes, yeah. And you knew to just like sit there and stay with it until I got to that core.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if you remember it. Do you
I
remember?
totally remember it. Are you kidding? Well, because I think we end up laughing about it at some point in every subsequent coaching thing that we do, deep dive that we do, right?
Yeah,
We kind of harken back to that because, we're facetiously saying, well, because, you were,
exactly, exactly. Because if I don't fix and I
Mhm.
don't save, then I'm a
Yes.
piece of sugar honey iced tea, right? As they
Exactly.
say, I'm a piece of beep, right?
Mhm,
I remember we would go to like the next situation and
mhm,
you'd guide me again. And
mhm,
that would be the core belief again. It was
mhm,
like, oh my God,
mhm. Yeah.
which is like, I can't even, which is so beautiful. I, I don't even have a strand to it anymore. Like
That's really beautiful. Yes. It is.
I'm getting like tears in my eyes just thinking of like the part of me that did carry that for a long time, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
it believed it.
well, and carry it is a really good analogy, because these are not facts. It was
Exactly.
never a fact, and it was never a truth. However, the way that these beliefs lodge, they come from our ego mind, or another word for that is another term for that is our conditioned self. They don't come out of any kind of truth or reality or any factual anything. They're completely made up, and they may have some kind of etiology in our history where we interpreted something somebody said, or something somebody did, or somebody's facial expressions, or even it's if somebody actually said that to us, you know, you are
Yes.
this is
Yeah.
true about you. None of that makes it true. Just because
Yeah.
somebody said something doesn't make it true, thankfully, right? But it goes into our gets lodged in our belief, and it gets kind of, stuck in there, and then it gets solidified with all of the subsequent things that happen in our lives, that we just go, "Oh, see, that's the evidence. Yeah, that just proves it. Yeah, there's another example of it. Yeah, that's another reason why I'm a piece of," And so
Yeah.
it gets really big, and in physiological terms, it becomes part of the brain's neural network.
Mhm.
The brain and the mind are not the same thing. The mind isn't part of the brain. The mind isn't part of the body. The mind is part of the part of the whole etheric body, or the whole sort of consciousness piece. Um, but it tells the brain what to think, for sure. And so, as long as you had that belief, then everything that you were doing, or everything that you were afraid would happen, everything that you thought would people would judge you for, but even the things that you thought people would judge you for, things that people would say about you or it and it would because of that, it would really be true. Because of that belief, it would really be true in your mind. Those things were actually your own projection because that's what happens is that we have these beliefs and we project our belief. It's like a projector projecting a movie onto a movie screen.
Yep.
It's not really what's coming from the other person, and that's one of the biggest misperceptions that there is that somebody else is thinking this or thinking that or saying that or holding that to be true about me, and the only reason they're holding something to be true like that about you is because you believe it yourself. They're
Yes.
just mirroring it back to you,
Yeah.
right? And so when we change these beliefs, that's what's so great is when we can change these beliefs, and as you said, you're not carrying that anymore, then you're not getting that reflected back to you anywhere
Mhm.
to the near to the degree that you once felt like you were, and if you do get a vestige of it reflected back to you, you're able to really see it, and you're able to really deal with it, and you're able to not take it on as truth and swallow it whole and believe it and then feel terrible,
That's
right?
that's exactly it. And that's that you just like kind of summed up the process of us shining light on the story, which, you know, that's that in that deep dive with you, like the story was illuminated. Then I couldn't unsee it, right? I couldn't unsee it once I saw it. And then the healing and the transformation that it took to get me to the point that even if, because exactly, the projection was real, but even if there was like a twinge of something like that coming back at me, and there have been moments like I it may shake me and rattle me, but not in the same way, and I'm able to snap out of it and be like, that's a story.
Yes.
That's not even real. That doesn't define me. That doesn't, and just shift my perspective, right?
Exactly, and doing that kind of work and particularly some of the specifics that we did around that work, for instance, the particular form of forgiveness that the Course in Miracles teaches, it's a
Hmm.
central instrument in undoing the ego and in undoing our egoic beliefs and in shifting our perception from fear to love. And so even if somebody does maintain that belief about you, if you don't maintain the belief about yourself, it doesn't really matter what someone else thinks about you because it doesn't have the ability anymore. It doesn't have the charge on it. It just doesn't have the power to, to rock you.
Exactly.
And I use that kind of the analogy with someone of if somebody said something to you that was completely just ridiculous, like, like, Jennifer, I don't like your purple hair. And then your purple hair is like, ugly and disgusting and stupid and whatever. And, you're kind of like, okay, well, thanks for sharing. Cause there's no part of you that believes you have purple hair. You don't. You can look in the mirror and be like, okay, whatever you're seeing right now. I don't know what that story is that you got, but you wouldn't even it just would you'd probably be like, "Geez, I wonder why she's seeing my hair is purple," but it wouldn't be like, "Oh my god, you hurt my feelings so bad, you don't like my purple hair,"
Yes.
and get all boo-boo kitty about it, right? And so that is the power, that is the diminishment of power that these stories we can experience with them when we do this kind of work is that they literally can somebody else can still believe it. They can still sort of pick up that old projection and toss it at us, but if we're not invested in it, then it just doesn't have the same power at all. So that's just one of the most beautiful things about doing this work is undoing these stories so that they don't have the power
Yeah.
to slow us down or to make us feel small or disempowered or anything.
Absolutely. And get in the way, get in the way of us, our dreams, what we really want, get in the way of healthy relationships, which I definitely want to talk and speak more to in our in this podcast interview. I Before I do that though, I do want to speak to the fact that you do use A Course in Miracles and you do use the power of those teachings, including the forgiveness. And I remember doing the work of forgiving myself,
Mm.
for the story that I was having, forgiving myself for the story I was projecting on other people, forgiving them, the forgiveness of forgiving them and whatever stories they may be projecting onto me. And that was so powerful. I still have those. I made charts.
I know.
Anybody who knows me, I'm obsessed with charts.
You're
Anybody
a
who knows
chart
me,
maker. No,
I'm
you
a
are.
chart
It's a gift you have.
Anybody who knows me works with me. They're like, "Oh, we got a chart. Okay." And of course I did that. Coach Kelly told me all about like, okay, forgive, the prayer and forgiving the story, right? And replacing it with something that was, much more, I don't know how else to say it other than like a higher vibration, but you could
Well,
probably.
yeah, it is a higher vibration. You're essentially in the Course in Miracles version of it, you're forgiving yourself for believing the story. You're forgiving
Yes.
yourself for having made up and believing the story. So you're not really forgiving whatever the person has done, because what you're responding to, what we have to remember too is that, and you know this as a psychotherapist as well, that it's not, it people say, "Oh, so and so made me feel this way," or "They made me feel that way. She's making me feel this or that." It doesn't work like that. We have a thought. The thought, there's some neutral thing that happens. There's a stimulus. We have a thought about it. We might have another thought and another thought. We might have a whole cluster of thoughts about it. Chronic thought, cluster of thoughts is what a belief is. So then we have a belief about it, and that is attached to our emotional system, and particularly our fight or flight response. And
Hmm.
so there's no anybody making us feel anything. Our thoughts in response to something that happens makes us feel something, right? And
Hmm.
so when we're practicing forgiveness, we're in essence forgiving the story that we have made up around whatever it was that has happened and that we've been reacting to. And when we forgive that story and we forgive ourselves for believing in it, and we are able to reconnect with the truth that is in the other person, and the truth that is in that other person is that they are the same as we are. It's like what goes back to that namaste prayer that I have hanging behind me,
Hmm.
that the light in you bows to the light in me, because the light in you and the light in me is the same light.
Hmm.
And that's really in essence what forgiveness is. It's recognizing the divine light in the other person, and that regardless of what we're believing that they're doing, regardless of what the behavior is in the world and the story we're making about it, the truth is that we're all the same exact divine light. And that when we recognize that, we're recognizing the love in the other person, that we're
Hmm.
all made of love. And there's no person that is not made of love. There's no being that is not made of love. We're all created by perfect love.
Hmm.
And if we're all created by perfect love, excuse me, then perfect love can't create anything except perfect love.
Love
So
that.
that's
Yes.
kind of how that
Yeah.
process in a nutshell kind of works.
Yeah. And just peeling away, anything that is saying differently about
Mm.
you or the other person, and just being able to see what's underneath all of those projections and or illusions as they call it in A Course in Miracles, right?
Yes. And the thing that I love about, I mean, I wouldn't be teaching that forgiveness if it hadn't worked miracles in my own relationships, and if
Mm-hmm.
my relationships hadn't been completely transformed by several teachings and tools and practices that came out of the course, but the most central of which and the most powerful of which is that forgiveness practice, and that it, it gives you relief in two ways. One is if you're projecting all of your, this, whatever you're projecting onto the situation, you're projecting your story onto the situation, and it's usually not a positive story. We're not worried about the positive stories. The positive stories are fine. It's when we've got a negative story going that causes us to be in judgment and condemnation and criticism of another person. Since we're all connected, we're all interrelated, we cannot feel those kinds of emotions towards someone else and not feel them toward ourselves. It's
Mhm.
impossible. And again,
Mhm.
this is in the philosophy of A Course in Miracles, is that we are all one, although I will say that most of the world's spiritual traditions do teach that we're all one at some point when you
Mhm.
boil it all down. And so we can't all be one if some of us are bad and some of us are good. There's
Mhm.
like no part of oneness. What part of oneness can be bad and what part can be good? Like it's all oneness, right? So
Yeah.
if we're all one creation of love, then we all are the same, and we all are divine, and we all are that light and that spark and that love. And so when you recognize that by practicing that version of forgiveness, whatever seemed to be happening in the world of form and time and space is able to be dissolved in your consciousness. And what remains is your love for the person, which means that you can then love yourself because you're not projecting guilt onto them. And so you're not projecting guilt onto yourself. Because since we are all the same, since we are all one, we are all interconnected, whatever you're feeling about another person is being reflected back to you, as we said earlier. So when you practice that forgiveness and you let go of that, which is really all forgiveness is letting go of anything other than love in any situation, letting go of any judgment, any fear, any condemnation, then you're able to see yourself with that same love in that same light. And so it transforms your self concept and allows you to experience self love at the same time that it also appears to transform the other person. And it really, I mean, it's crazy how what kinds of things can happen when you practice that form of forgiveness. People seem to behave differently, and
Mm.
it seems to change situations. And it's incredibly powerful.
It is. It is. And it's amazing, if we can just sit and contrast, if we feed all of the things that are judgment, fear, shame, condemnation, right? And it then how is any relationship going to work? How is anything going I mean, if we're just in that alone, right? Versus the other, just like letting love rule, which I will have to say is, it's shining a light and seeing the light in ourselves and each other, that just that contrast alone, hopefully people can see that when you allow the stories and the beliefs that are of that fear, judgment, condemnation, shame, it's really hard to access those things that you really want, which are most of us, we all want to be loved, right? We want to love and be loved. Like that's what, like you said, it all chisels down to we're all one and we all want to love and be loved, period.
Yes, and yet there is this mechanism in our minds, in this tiny part of our minds, this ego conditioned self mechanism that wants to keep us in a place of fear. And people ask me all the time, like, why is that? Why do we even have that? And a short answer that I think is fairly palatable is it's a part of our mind that wants to be in control of us. It's a part of our mind that wants to be the boss of us and can only do that if it keeps us in a state of fear.
Mhm.
If we move toward love and we allow the divine, how whatever our word for it is, the universal intelligence or God, or, whatever, again, whatever our word for it is, the creator, the universe, etc. If we allow that to guide us, it's going to be guiding us from love
Mhm.
every single time. And that poses the biggest threat to the ego, because the ego mind is not going to be the boss of us at all if we're being guided by love. It's completely threatened by that.
Mhm.
But it's that voice that keeps whispering in our ear about how we need to control a situation. We need to make somebody do what we want them to do, or we need to make all kinds of meaning and story around. If they're not, that means they don't care. It means they don't love us. Or if we are, if we don't stand up for ourselves and, take a stance and argue with them and try to bend them to our will and whatever, then we're somehow being, you know, being a doormat, or we're giving in, or we're being weak, or whatever. Love will never make you weak. Fear will make you weak all day long, but love is the strongest force there is. And so if you're allowing love to guide you, and you're siding with love, you're choosing love in any situation, it just means you're empowered.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It does. It absolutely does. And it makes me think, I know you know this, Coach Kelly, and I don't know how many people in my podcast audience know this, but the theme of my wedding was let love rule.
Yes, it was.
And and just the work that we did, that had me, instead of use fear. I mean, there were so many moments of fear that, in the relationship with my husband prior, that I could have just like chosen the fear path. And so that's why it was so significant to have the wedding. Like, we're letting love rule. Like, this wedding, this agreement, this exchange, this celebration is because we didn't let fear, or all of those obstacles, get in the way, which are there.
Yeah. All those faces of fear, you just
Yes,
didn't
yeah.
let you didn't let it stop you. And it would have fear would have liked to stop you, because fear doesn't understand love. The ego mind does not understand love. That aspect of us, the conditioned self, does not understand love, but that does not ever stop it from trying to prevent us from moving toward it. Just
Mhm.
because it does understand that I'm not going to have control over you. If you move toward love and let love rule and let love guide you and start making all your damn decisions from love, I am not going to be able to be the boss of you, and sort of, be the little voice in your mind that is causing you to, in let me to keep me in power.
Mhm.
Because the voice of that fear voice inside us, that voice that makes us doubt ourselves, that makes us think that someone won't love us, or what if they abandon me, or what if I don't please everybody, what will happen to me? And I'll find out that I'm a piece of, right?
Exactly.
Or that I'm not good enough, or that I'm a failure, or I'm not lovable. Whatever those beliefs are, there's a million of them,
I
but
know.
they all boil down to, they're all false. They're
Yes,
all irrational.
exactly.
Nobody is any of those things that we believe, those false beliefs that we have. No, they're
Exactly.
not true of any of us.
Exactly. And we'll let them run our lives as if they were true,
Mhm.
as if they were fact. And
Yes, because we
they're
run our lives by our own beliefs. We run our, God doesn't run our lives. Jesus doesn't run our lives. There is no entity that runs. Satan doesn't run our lives. There's no outside influence that runs our lives. Our beliefs about ourselves are what run our lives. If we believe that we are bad or guilty or shameful or not lovable or not good enough or a piece of crap, or whatever those beliefs are, that will become our experience. it's not, a lot of people think it's the other way around. Oh, well, I was told that I am that, and so, or I believe that I am that because of these things that happened to me, and I couldn't catch a break, and I couldn't get this, and I wasn't able to do that, and no one loved me, and I couldn't have a relationship, and I got abused and divorced and all this stuff. But it's really, that's really backwards. It's based on our own beliefs about ourselves and about the world. We're projecting those beliefs. They're creating our reality. And that is how we continue to either perpetuate a situation in our lives. It's not because we just have this incredible number of, you know, terrible people in our lives. It's because we continue to have an incredible number of terrible beliefs about ourselves. And then we project that onto our lives, and then that becomes our reality. So as you change your beliefs, and as you up level them, and as you transform them from fear to love in the ways that we do, there's a myriad of ways of doing that, then you don't keep living in that reality. You trade that reality in for a much happier one.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly. And I really do believe that we can't do it alone. Like maybe there's some work that we can do alone to illuminate these stories or of course, I don't want to discount the idea of self-help and self-work, but there is something incredibly powerful that and of having someone outside like
Yeah.
you did for me
Mhm.
to just you know teach me the tools that you carried to guide me in seeing things differently and seeing what was at the core to confront a lot of the irrational stories. I mean, I guess I will throw that one in there. So in addition to A Course in Miracles, as we said, Coach Kelly has a natural way of using humor and laughter and all of that in her work. And I remember there was a deep dive, and um, I was talking about all the dreams that I had of things I wanted to do, but that I couldn't because I signed a prenup.
That damn prenup.
But I remember there was one point where, like, I just was nonchalantly living in the story,
Mhm.
not even maybe I wasn't aware of it, just like totally bound.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, there's the prenup. And you just in a very funny voice were like, well, the prenup, the prenup. And you kind of were like, just
Can't have
stop.
the life I want because of that damn prenup.
Like, just stop. Let's look at all that you have. And you just, all that you have. Yes, you signed a prenup, but you also have, which by the way, it was, well, no, we don't need to justify the prenup, but
But that has been transformed for you.
5,000%.
Yeah.
I don't even think of it anymore. I don't
Of
even.
course. Because it was just a story. There was nothing about it that was true in terms of keeping you from doing anything that you wanted to do, right? And so being able to, but it's such a great illustration of, it's not it's not the things that have the power, it's the things that we give the power to. And so you had invested that with all this power, you know? And I will say, there's an element to the things that we do this with. Prenup is a really great example because, like, nobody held the gun to your head to sign that prenup. You signed it yourself, right? We make choices, right? We make decisions, we make choices, but then we then project, we project those, and project our whatever our BS about it all over the situation or the person, and we try, and this is the ego within us. It's not who we really are, but then it's like the ego looks for, well, I'm going to blame whatever I'm not doing that I want to do, or whatever I feel like I'm being held back from, or whatever success I feel like I can't have, or whatever I feel like I'm a victim of in this world. I'm just going to blame it on that. And I'm
Mhm.
going to project it onto that. And so, you know, you it's never held you back because it wasn't holding you back in the first place. The story was holding you back.
The
And so
story was going back.
the story, in which is this work that you do, this amazing work that you do, you know, illuminating the stories that bind us, when you illuminated that story. And that's the thing that happens with these ego stories that we have, these beliefs that we carry, these false beliefs, is that when you shine the light on them, they tend to fall apart
That's it.
because the ego is not good with like under the light of scrutiny. And it's another reason why if you do that kind of journaling work where you're, where we the kind of the what we were doing when we
Yes.
when we arrived at the
Hmm.
I'm a piece of crap thing, right? That you start with you start with that first sentence, but then you keep asking yourself, and so what does that mean? And so what does that mean? Well, what would be true if that were true? And then what would that mean? And you just keep going until you get to that very base belief and that very base sentence where you can't go any further, and that's what it was.
Hmm.
And whether we're a- aware of those beliefs, those underlying beliefs of those stories or not, doesn't mean they're operational whether we're aware of them or not. So a lot of them can be in our unconscious mind. And
Absolutely.
that's why the illuminating work is so important, because if you don't know what the story is, it's really hard to tell a different story. It's really
That
hard to to know, to be able to work with it if you can't identify it. And so
that's
it's
it.
why it's very helpful to get very clear and good at hearing your thoughts about other people, hearing your thoughts about yourself. If you like write in a journal, it's helpful to kind of read over what you've written, because sometimes the story can be quite loud in between those lines of what you're hearing yourself say or what you're reading your words are. But the kind of language that you use, I hear people all the time saying they want one thing and then using completely self-negating scarcity, shortage consciousness language, and all that's going to do is perpetuate whatever situation that they're in, that they wish they weren't in and that they would like to be out of, and they say they would like to be out of, but they're not getting themselves out of it because they're keeping themselves in it with the thoughts about it and the beliefs and the language and the
That's
power
it.
that they have.
That is it. That's it. And so I am so grateful for everything that aligned, that brought me to you again, to you the first time, the second time, and now to infinity. And I, I just say with the biggest heartfelt thank you. Thank you for illuminating my stories, Coach Kelly. Thank you for illuminating the stories that bound me. And thank you for sticking with me to see me, step into a life that is no longer held back by the belief that I am, a piece of crap if I don't fix or save everyone in the universe. And yeah, it's so
Right.
bizarre, but that was there. That was there. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Well,
So
and thank you for your lovely words. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your faith in me. And I will also say that you are the one who did the work, and I'm very happy to have been a guide for you and a teacher for you, but you are the one who agreed to do the work. And you were the one who agreed to do the letting go and to do the deciding of not to stay in that place of fear, in that place of resistance. And you were the one who was fearless about telling me what the stories were and
mm,
identifying them and being willing to look at them.
mhm.
And that's all necessary. This is courageous work. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's been so joyful for me over these years to watch the various things that were the beautiful result of you doing that work, right?
Mhm.
Of starting with your wedding
Mhm.
and going, through all the different things that we have worked on, and then most recently the decisions that you've made and are now living. And it's so exciting that you just keep upgrading your life and you just keep getting
Mhm.
happier and you just keep aligning more what really rocks your joy and taking these steps that you would not have been able to take had you stayed in that small place or that place of believing what you were previously believing. And, our job really in my mind is it's figuring out what the stories are and then disproving them and
Mhm.
truly becoming the hero instead of the victim of our stories.
Mhm. Mhm. So well said. So well said. So I really hope and I appreciate you acknowledging that it's so true, the willingness, and that it is bravery to do this work. And so I that is the hope that I extend out, that anyone who does want their joy rocked and has heard the story, and it is true. I am the most joyful I have ever been, and I know it's from this journey. I know it is. And so I really am excited to share you with everyone, and I know that you have. I will be sharing your link tree so that people know all the resources that you have, and
Mhm.
tools and gifts and ways of getting, to work with you, from courses to coaching. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add about that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, my link tree that's the link that you can click. It basically takes you to all of the different things that I offer or information about them or how to access me or my YouTube channel or free content that I offer or blog posts or packages that I put together that help people to deal with anxiety, for instance, or a workshop that I did on stopping blocking your joy. But most recently, the two things that I've created that are also at the top of that link tree are a digital course called Creating Miraculous Relationships, Rocking Big Ass Love with Others, Yourself, and God, which really just kind of takes you through every aspect of kind of like how we got here in the first place and why relationships are so problematic and why can't we all just get along and really unearth the story that we've been telling ourselves about who we really are versus who we really are and without the story and then also, what I like to tell people is that there were times in my life where, and not for a few decades, a couple of decades anyway, but there were times in my life where I was estranged from various people in my life, loved ones, my father at one point, my sister at one point, my best friend at one point. I had conflict in love relationships and conflict in work relationships and it wasn't because I'm really hard to get along with. It was just because I had all these stories going and I was believing them and I was projecting them all over other people. And so I share in that course everything that I did to create miraculous relationships with all of those people, one of whom I did posthumously because I didn't do that with my father before he passed, but I have done it since. And everyone
Mm,
else, it was while they are alive or were alive. And so I feel like I'm my own poster child for that I lived it.
mm,
And so I share all the tools and practices and mindset changes that I used and made. And the other um, thing that I've created recently is a free program. It's a free short program and it's called the Harmony Code. And it's essentially 5 keys to finding peace in any relationship. And so those both can be accessed from the link that you're posting. And so really there's all kinds of ways to access me. And I do, as Jen has indicated, I do live coaching, one-on-one coaching as well. And so we can certainly talk about that for anyone who's interested. I do offer a free discovery call where I send you the information about my coaching. And if you're interested, after receiving that and reviewing it, then we have a call where we kind of go through some coaching, some real coaching, and you can make a decision about whether you want to work with me, and kind of like what Jen has done. So
Exactly. Exactly. Yay. Thank you so much for all of that. And thank you for all the gems that you shared in this podcast interview. And thank you for all the gems that you have on that link tree. I mean, just listening to you, I'm like, oh my goodness. And then just even your discovery call is a generous way for people to take the first step and
mhm.
on this brave but very rewarding journey.
Thank
Oh,
you, Jen. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and be part of your beautiful podcast, and just be able to have this lovely conversation, and share a little bit of this relationship that we've had over the years with your
I
audience.
yeah, it's my pleasure.
Mhm.
And I know it was really nice. I feel like it was a really good moment to just kind of reflect on this profound journey. So I'm grateful for this opportunity and to all the listeners for
Yes,
being a part of it and for you, Coach Kelly. So thank you so much.
thank you, and thank you to your listeners as well.
Yes. All right. Bye, everybody.
Stay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening. If you have found any of this inspiring or helpful, please share this episode with a friend. Visit www.jenniferhcarey.com for more information about my psychotherapy and coaching services, as well as upcoming events, workshops, and retreats. Wishing you joy, freedom, and healthy relationships.